Okay, I'd like to bring this meeting to order. It's 6:05 on March 20th, 2023. First on our agenda is budget deliberation and recommendations. I'm assuming everybody had a chance to go through the budget. Some of this are kind of locked in, stipends, the salaries. Is there any budget that sticks out, that glares, that you want to discuss at this particular point in time? Andrea, is there anything that you'd like to add to our discussion on the budget?
I don't know whether you all got my memo. For some reason, I thought you had gotten it, only to find out that I think you didn't quite get it until this evening, but I had Sandra make a comment, a copy for you. So basically what I did for comments is I went through all the articles, but if you're talking about the budget, it's really Article 5 in the warrant, because that's the omnibus article. So the only comments that I made, if I just jump to Article 5 in my memo, is I kind of commented on any article that was that was excuse me, that was over a certain amount of money other than salary, like if a change was occurring. So, you know, I noted that the board clerk position is changing, but this is actually not as big an increase. It's mostly due to the fact that we're adding hours into this budget line item and taking it out of the finance committee secretary line item. So there is also a small increase because we're bringing it up so that the hours are consistent all year round and not just the 13 hours during budget time. So there's a small change there. There's looks like a larger change, but it's really only a smaller change once you take into account that the finance committee secretary position is zeroed. Then the biggest thing is the treasurer collector that I've represented in, it's both in the treasurer and the collector's budget. I printed out the following reasons, and I'm sure you had, you know, we discussed them during your meeting. The accountant, I'm actually asking to move the audit, the cost of the audit into the accountant line item. This isn't really an increase in the general budget because we've been doing it as a separate article, but it does appear as an increase in Article 5 because it used to be its own warrant article and not in the omnibus. Then there's the assistant treasurer collector position. Again, I've written out the reasons and you guys had the discussion for approximately $12,000 on that position. And we just got it classified. So I'm actually going to work on what the real number is, but I think we're not looking at much there. The next article and the next thing in Article 5 would be the police full-time officer. The total effective increase to the budget is about $42,000 because there's a reduction in the part-time hours as well. There's a tuition and transportation for out of district, and this is directly increased due to the cost of transportation for the student based on our assessment or the charges we get from the transporter, plus a small increase in the tuition itself. And then highway, he asked for some increases, mostly due to having been level funded for years and years, and the cost of materials not being level funded for years and years. Same with the snow and ice budget. He's looking to increase the salt amount and machinery maintenance. There's a request there of $9,000. The mosquito control access, which we voted at a special town meeting the prior year, would now go into the budget if we were to become a member of that district annually. Then you had a presentation by the recreation department, and the subsequent increases would amount to about $30,560. I tried to break down the effective cost of every increase. That one's got the director, the regular wages, the volunteer wages, and the purchase services. And then the rest are, you know, retirement, health insurance, those kinds of cost assessments. So if you're looking at the budget, those are the big omnibus increases that I mentioned in the memo. But obviously, those are all for you to discuss as to whether or not you support them.
Okay, given the information here, do you want to go item by item and, or do you want to take the omnibus as a whole? I mean,
That's
it's up to committee here. So, because we can talk about the select board budget as far as doing that, the increase had to do with their stipends. I mean, we can recommend each one of these if you want and discuss each one of these, or we can do it as a whole. Can I have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion that we do this as a whole.
A whole.
I second that motion.
Any discussion on that?
Well, we've had a lot of discussion.
We have had a lot of discussion. I just want to
About all
give
of
people
it.
the opportunity to, if they feel they needed to add to
Well,
that.
That's what I'm
Okay.
saying, that we've discussed a lot of these articles
Okay.
in depth, so.
Okay.
That we
Mr.
read.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I just want to get clarity on what the motion actually is.
The motion is to basically just take the omnibus as a whole with the information we have here and vote on it intact as it was presented.
Okay, so the motion is to, because I wrote do, is that really what you want in minutes? To do the omnibus budget discussion as a whole?
Or no, to vote to support the omnibus budget as a whole and
Okay.
not go into each line.
It would be recommend, that's.
Recommend.
the word to put on.
Recommend.
Vote
Recommend.
to recommend.
Recommend.
Okay, so the motion by Tony is to vote to recommend the omnibus budget as a whole. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And it was seconded by.
By Bernie,
Yep.
yeah, and I didn't hear the vote.
There's
We
no
haven't
vote yet.
voted it yet.
That must be why.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Unanimous. So, moving on, as far as doing that, are we looking at the capital, or is that articles?
Right, I mean, if you wanna take the warrant,
I mean, that seemed to me to be the most logical way to go through it. So, I
Okay.
mean, like, Articles 1 through 3, they're non-financial, no discussion there. Article 2 was the prior year library bills for oil from Sandry. I'm recommending at this time that you take it from free cash. So you can decide how you want to, whether you want to recommend that and.
I'll vote on number 4. Well, we need a vote, but we need a motion.
Okay, I make a motion to, that we recommend Article number 4 in the annual town meeting warrant.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion? The only thing is, Andrea, will this take a 4/5 vote?
oh, at town meeting. we'll do
Yes.
it.
Yes, it will take a supermajority.
Okay, all those in favor to recommend
Recommend, yeah,
Recommend.
Article 4.
that the $616.91 be paid
From free
from
cash.
free cash.
Oh, hold the phone, Mr. Chair, because that wasn't the motion that I wrote down, so I want to make sure I get it exactly how you want it.
Okay,
What I wrote down was the motion by, Bernie Corrado to recommend Article 4 in the, annual town meeting warrant. Where do you want that amount in the sentence? You gave a dollar figure and that wasn't in the original motion, so I want to make sure I'm getting this.
Do you want me to amend it?
sure.
All right, I'm going to amend that motion. I make a motion that we recommend Article 4 for prior year bills in the amount of $616.91.
Oh, you're a fast talker.
Ooh.
For prior year bills of,
$616.91.
Do you have one of these with you? Did you get one of these?
no,
Okay. You guys, yes, that makes it a little bit easier as far as
little bit,
And it was seconded by
I was second that.
Tony.
Tony. And there is there a
This is
discussion?
on, right, the amendment.
All those in favor of, yeah,
The amendment to
to
include.
do amendment to
Some-
Article 4 to include the dollar amount and recommending said article or said motion.
Wait a minute.
No, we're just gonna vote on it. What do you look, okay, what are,
So,
We
I
have
just wanna
to,
make sure we get this right for you.
yeah, I do too. There was a motion made by Mr. Parada, seconded by Mr. Mateo,
Okay, is there any more
And then-
discussion?
and then there's an amendment.
Oh, right,
How am I
so-
recording
Yes,
this?
yeah.
Yeah.
The amendment was what Bernie had made it, adding the dollar amount.
Okay, so do you want the minutes to show the original motion?
No,
without
he,
the dollar amount?
no, because we didn't vote on it, so we don't have to have that. So
Okay, so
we
all
just
I need to
he just
do-
changed his motion.
So all I need to do is just change.
Correct,
And
Yep.
then just present that in the draft minutes, the
Correct.
one singular motion.
correct.
And then, did you just vote on it? I'm
No,
sorry.
No, we haven't
we're
voted
gonna
yet.
do that.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor of the motion to, I keep it
To recommend
in.
prior.
Recommend, all those in favor say aye.
aye,
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all. Try about that, guys. Article 4, Article 5 we discussed, we've taken care of that. Article 6,
6 is
the emergency services operating budget. Yeah. Do I have a motion to recommend the emergency service operating budget?
I make a motion to recommend Article 6, the Emergency Services Operating Budget.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Article 7,
This is the $15,000.
$15,000.
Emergency services.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to recommend Article number 7, the Emergency Services Capital Request, for the amount of $15,000.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Sewer operating budget. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to recommend Article 8, the Sewer Operating Budget.
I second.
Again, that is covered by the sewer enterprise fund. Could we amend that, start over again, because I don't want the,
You want the dollar amount?
I don't want, there's no dollar amount, but I want the sewer enterprise, where it's coming from, that's all.
Okay, all righty. I will amend the original motion. I make a motion to recommend Article 8, the Sewer Operating Budget. This will be covered by the Sewer Enterprise Fund.
And now do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 9, sewer capital request.
Well, I'll make a motion to recommend Article 9, Sewer Capital Request, in the amount of $150,000 to replace a water line to the sewer plant. This will be covered by the Sewer Enterprise Fund.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify, by, any discussion, first of all? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Revolving funds. Andrea, Article 10. That's here, yeah.
Yes.
Revolving fund.
Yep, that's the annual, you have to annually approve these by law. Every year, basically what it shows is who is authorized to spend, which department, committee, or person, the use of the funds specifically, the revenue source, which is all generally fees, and then the limit that they can actually spend that the town is approving at town meeting.
So this covers all the revolving funds that we're talking about. Okay.
Yes, everything that has to be voted annually.
and this is the same amount as last year, fell level funded?
We have
Changed any of the numbers in terms of their limits.
Okay.
Andrea, do we have to vote on each individual fund itself, or do we, to recommend, or do we can just
You
recommend?
can vote.
To recommend Article 10 revolving funds.
Okay.
Is everybody aware of what those funds are before we go on?
I am not.
Okay. So in that case,
Here, pass this over.
well, no,
There's- oh,
we can include the, not what they are, but who they belong to.
okay.
If you want.
The revolving funds are the following: recreation programs, council on aging breakfast and lunch program, the recycling fund, gas inspection, plumbing inspection, wiring inspection, and tax title revolving. Of course, these are through various departments of the town itself, and what it states is basically the use of the funds, the revenue sources, and also the fiscal year 24 limit on that fund for a dollar amount. Do you want to see them, Dave?
No, I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, is there an extra copy of that, and do you want all those revolving funds that Mr. Parada just read to be included in the draft minutes?
We can include them, yes, if you want to pass it over.
Here, you can pass that.
Okay.
Thank you. I will not be able to return it till later, because I can't write them all down and take your minutes.
That's fine. So with that being said, as far as Article 10, the revolving funds, do I have a motion to recommend?
I make a motion to recommend Article 10, the revolving funds as printed.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Any more discussion on that?
No.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Unanimous. Article 11.
Yeah, I don't have an
Update from Tom on what this total is. This is the snow and ice deficit. I will get a number from him shortly, I hope. This is mostly from that storm, not the most recent, but the storm, remember when all the trees came down? Was that February? He had to hire a lot of additional work and overtime for his guys to remove all the trees and open all the roads over several days. So I have put an estimate in there right now of $100,000, but I have to get that number from him. Generally speaking, you can overexpend the winter roads account in the course of a year, but then you do have to cover it one way or another. There's multiple ways to cover it. One is to transfer from available funds at the end of the year. 2 is to cover it at town meeting with a funding source. 3 is to put it on next year's tax rate. I'm recommending that we cover it from available funding. We do have it. We do have enough in free cash if we go in the $100,000 range. I'm hoping it will come in less. Because I don't think you really want to put it on the tax rate when we're looking at some other larger expenditures that may go on the tax rate. And that's quite a sum to try and find to cover from unexpended funds at the end of the year. 100,000, we usually find 1,000 here, 1,000 there, or a couple hundred. Sometimes it's single dollars if a budget goes over, but a budget of that size is really waiting till the end of the year to see if you can scrape up 100,000 is really, I think.
Is any of this, will we get reimbursed for any of this, or just is a loss? So we don't get any.
unless
They decide it's a FEMA storm, and I don't think they decided that storm was a FEMA storm.
Okay.
So it's just essentially on the town to cover the costs of that storm. So I don't have the exact figure yet. I'm waiting for Tom to give me that. He told me it would not be in excess of that amount. So that's what I'm plugged into the free cash at this time for safety reasons.
So you're saying it will not exceed the $100,000?
That's what he seemed to think at the time. He could come back and say, "Oh my gosh, I was terribly wrong," but I suspect not.
I'd like to have a motion to recommend Article 11.
I make a motion to recommend Article 11, the snow and ice deficit, in the amount of $100,000.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion?
Do we want to say where we're going to take that from? She said available funds. He said,
Well, she said she wasn't absolutely sure yet, but
I think free cash.
you think free cash?
Cash is where I'm recommending, yes, that would be the only available fund.
That you would have for town meeting in that amount.
Okay, so we're gonna back up, and if you want to.
I will amend that. I amend that. I make a motion to recommend Article 11, the snow and ice deficit, in the amount of $100,000 to be appropriated from free cash.
I second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 12. Okay.
I'll make a motion that we expend $11,980 for 350th anniversary, is it, or centennial, or whatever, expense, to be funded from free cash.
Okay, it would be a recommendation from.
Recommendation.
Okay, recommendation from the Finance Committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Article 13. Assessor's legal expenses.
I make a motion that we recommend Article 13, Assessor's Legal Expenses, in the amount of $25,000, and I recommend this funding request come from free cash.
Do I have a second?
I'm
Sec-
sorry, Mr. Chair, I need a moment to catch up because.
Oh, we're going to, okay.
You're going
Okay,
a little
my-
too
we can do
fast.
that.
My
There's a
apology.
lot-
We'll-
there's a
we'll
lot
take a-
going on here.
We'll
vote
have
on this
Bernie
and
slow
then-
down a little bit.
Take this.
So you just approved the Article 12 for the 350th, and now you're on to,
Article 13.
okay, and the motion was made by whom?
I made the motion,
Okay, and what was it for?
and the motion was Article 13. It's Assessor's Legal Expenses.
Okay, what was the wording of your motion?
Is that 13 or 12? I'm sorry. Hold
That's
that.
13.
13.
Okay.
My motion was that we recommend Article 13, Assessor's Legal Expenses, in the amount of $25,000. I would recommend funding this request from free cash.
Oh, okay, so basically what? Thank you. What
It's pretty
article?
much almost what was said there.
All right, thank you. Yeah, this is all. News
I'll
to
slow
me.
it down, I promise.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. 25 free cash. Okay, and who seconded that?
I did.
And did you vote?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion on Article 13? Seeing none, signify by saying aye.
Aye?
Aye.
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 Nays? None. Unanimous. Article 14, the highway truck. And we'll slow down a little bit.
As you
Ready?
recall, the highway department
Had two capital requests, the highway truck and a trailer. So I've only put my recommendation on here, but obviously they're both for your consideration. I believe that during the discussion with Tom, both at the meeting and subsequently, he said if you're going to choose one of them, he was requesting that you fund the truck. He might be able to fund the trailer through Chapter 90, but he could not do so with the truck. As much as he needs to do the trailer and he feels that it's pretty vital, he does feel he has the potential other funding source. So I'm recommending to you, to just fund the one. Obviously, that's just my recommendation. You can choose to do one, both, or neither.
Wanted a discussion also with Tom as far as somebody who's willing to give a trailer in order to get the
Right.
truck, so.
Which is
So
a
that-
capital expense that's
So, yeah,
coming later.
so he was going to try to work within his funds to be able to do that. So, both of the items were exactly the same, they were $60,000, so he withdrew or is going to fund the trailer out of a different account within his account, so he's willing to withdraw the trailer. So, that being said, we need a recommendation for Article 14. A motion, rather, I'm sorry, a motion.
I make a motion to recommend Article 14, highway truck, in the amount of $60,000. And funding this request will come from free cash.
Do I have a second for that?
Okay.
I second.
Any more discussion on the truck? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, unanimous.
I did also want to point out that you had a capital request from the police at one point for the
Police cruiser, after subsequent discussion, regarding his request for the officer versus the vehicle and the fact that, you know, he does have a vehicle, new vehicle coming in, and he's not sure what's going on with the school resource officer position. The chief was amenable to withdrawing that request at this time for this year.
Or the cruiser.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why it doesn't appear on my recommendations, but he knows that.
Moving on to Article 15. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we fund in the amount of $25,000 the Northfield Elementary School key card access system. These, I guess, where do we have to get us,
This is from free cash.
where it's coming from
Yeah.
too?
Yep.
Where is it coming from?
Free cash.
Free cash.
Free cash.
There it is, right there, I saw it,
From free cash, okay.
from free cash.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? This is a similar system that we have, I believe, in the town hall, where we'll know who has access to the building coming and going. So that's good. It keeps security tight, so that only the people that are authorized to go into the building will be able to go into the building.
It's also on a list of the recommended safety requirements.
It is,
for-
it is.
For
It
the
is
schools,
one of them,
for all
so.
schools, really.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Unanimous. Article 16. Elementary school shades and window coverings. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we recommend Article 16 for the Northfield Elementary School shades window coverings in the amount of $15,000. And the funding source will be free cash.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Article 17 is a non-monetary, so we're going to skip over.
I just wanted to interject one thing. I just wanted to bring to your attention that there was a third request from the school. This is, again, these are my recommendations. These are not necessarily what you have to do. The school did request a third capital request for interior doors in the building for $45,000 to replace those doors. Unlike the other two requests, it was not followed up with a specific quote, which it was an estimate that they were using. So at this time, I didn't recommend it forward. It doesn't mean it's something that obviously they don't need or shouldn't go forward in the future. Also, we're, working on their $260,000 bathroom renovation, which has already been appropriated and we're working through it this time. I'm waiting to actually get an estimate on that. I just wanted to point out that there is right now some $80,000 in your free cash that has not been allocated. So I didn't want you to think that I'm leaving these things out because you don't have the potential funding. So if you guys feel differently than I feel, then obviously you can pursue that. I do want to alert you to the fact that I've opened up an email today from our bond counsel with a recommended amount that we may have to, that we need to put in the budget, which is not involved here because I didn't know it, for temporary borrowing costs. So I will be bringing that back to you. Most of that funding will have to come from free cash. So, that's something that I'm gonna have to work into the budget. Because we do have temporary borrowings until the bonding is final in the final year. And we will be think of it as a mortgage on a house. You do temporary borrowings and then you roll it into your mortgage. We will have interest on that, but that's a discussion I can have later. I just wanted to point out there was a third school request for those interior doors that should you as a committee want to discuss or fund, that you should, should take that discussion up or, recognize that it exists. That's all.
Andre, the amount you mentioned, $80,000, that would
Yeah.
bring us, that would include what we had just voted about the window coverings or not?
No, it does. The only thing that it doesn't include is stuff that I didn't recommend.
Yet, or that you didn't
Okay.
vote on yet. So
we have-
yes, everything that is
80,000
involved
right now.
here,
Okay.
yes, everything
Okay.
that is involved here in my memo is included already. And the balance that's left is that, I think it's actually $84,043 that has not been allocated. But I suspected that there was some money going to be requested of us for short-term borrowing. I just haven't been able to bring that to you yet because I only received that data today, but will bring that to you, shortly, as soon as I can figure it out. Where we're gonna get all that, we're gonna get that funding from. But yes, the stuff that you have in front of you is included in all of these discussions already.
Andrea, I've got a quick question since we're on the schools issues on capital requests. Did the PVRS withdraw? They had a capital request for over $30,000 with no explanation for what the reason was, and I don't see it on the list anymore. Did they withdraw that?
No, it's in your omnibus, you voted it. PBRS capital.
In the omnibus, but they did send in the data on it.
We didn't get
So
anything specific on what they were spending the money for.
yes, we did. They sent that they're doing the door fobs and window coverings as well at the high school. They're doing the same
I
project.
just haven't seen that yet, sorry.
I got an email.
Okay. It's in the omnibus.
I didn't get anything other than an email, but I can forward that email to you. I will make a note to forward the email.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Article 17 is staying
On
on.
money articles, so we're gonna skip over that. Article 18, OPEB funds of 75, yeah,
I'm sorry, OPEB trust.
OPEB,
That's the
yeah,
OPEB trust.
OPEB funds for retired.
You've been putting about 75,000 a year into that.
I would recommend, keeping up with that amount. I think that, it's a safe amount. I also think that it's something that the town it's good for the town to do it. Not only does it look good on paper, but it also means that you're not leaving this to future residents to fund, when these particular, requests are made as people retire, and it's health insurance for retirees. And it's an unfunded, liability that the town carries from year to year. So you're actually you're filling that unfunded liability every year and bringing that number down.
And where are you recommending this money come from? Or
OPEB,
source of funds? OPEB?
OPEB is also.
So I have it on the list here. OPEB, I believe, is also funded from free cash. Yes. Free cash.
Okay, I need a motion for
Article 18, the OPEB trust fund.
I make a motion to recommend Article 18, the OPEB trust fund, in the amount of $75,000, and the funding source will be free cash.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
Who actually seconded that?
Tony.
Tony.
Tony, okay, either one. Any more discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye,
Aye.
unanimous. 19 is something new, but I'm going to have Andrea explain this a little bit to us.
Right, so, based on opioid settlements,
And I just got some new language that's going in the warrant. I just got that today from the lawyers, because based on national and state settlements, we're getting various funding. We had 2, now there's 3 more with Walmart and CVS, and there's 5 or 6 different opioid settlements that are coming to the town over an extended number of years, like 10 or 15 years. So we're getting little amounts of money. But the way that the law says we have to deal with it, because there's no other funding mechanism under Massachusetts law, is we really have to set up an account, a stabilization account, for those funds to go into automatically, which we haven't done yet because we all just started receiving them. And that then we have to appropriate from the stabilization account for those funds to be sent going forward. Now, just to give you a heads up, I'm working on that number. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of about $4,000 that we have received this fiscal year that would go into this account. That's a sizably larger chunk than some of these will be giving us, because some of them combined the first 3 years, a couple of the early settlements. I did get language from our council that cites the law, that how it's set up, how the money will be automatically deposited in the future going forward as we receive these funds. And there are spending requirements on these funds. That's why they have to be kept segregated. They are not to go into our general stabilization. So in the future, there will be votes to spend these funds based under specific rules having to do with health and opioids and mitigation of their effects. So that's why we have to segregate them. So there will be an article that says place everything we received to date in a fund, and everything we receive going forward in a fund for future appropriation according to the guidelines that the state and federal government have set out.
Okay, just to be clear, this is to
The
create,
stabilization fund, it really isn't a non-article motion at the moment, but it will be in the future.
you will be moving money into it?
Everything we received to date, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4,000, and then every other bit of money we get going forward will automatically go into that account.
okay.
Do I have a motion for Article 9 to recommend?
I make a motion to recommend Article 9 as written, because it's so extensive.
Article 19.
Excuse me, Article 19, my
Did I say 9
apology.
also? Did I say 9 also?
You both
Thank
did.
If you could recommend it,
For the lawyer's language, the way it's written here is not, I have had to change that language. I got new language today. So if you would just recommend it to be put in per legal counsel's language, I think that would be fine.
I'll amend that then. I recommend, I make a motion to recommend Article 19 as the town's legal counsel has written.
And seconded?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Article 20 is a non-monetary, so we're going to skip it. Article 21, still it's non-monetary. Preservation Committee bylaw update.
That's not monetary.
That's not monetary.
Also non-monetary.
yeah, and I don't know if you have any questions.
On any of these, I mean, I can just let you fill you in. The Council on Aging bylaws, they don't appear to have any, so this would be putting them in place. The floodplain overlay district bylaw is something FEMA is requiring. That we have one, but the language is not to their satisfaction with the new floodplain laws that are going into effect. We've been working on that with the FERCog. The planning board has been working on that with the FERCog and Peggy Sloan, so that's coming that. The Preservation Committee, the CPC language is because the language that was adopted, which was the standard language at the time, references a member of a housing authority. We don't have a housing authority. So traditionally, we have been using a member of the Council on Aging, and we're just cleaning that up by making that, that legitimate entry into the bylaw to represent what the town is already doing, in practice, just to clean
So
that
these
up.
will be amendments to the original bylaws?
Yeah, for the Council on Aging is its own, it's new. The other two, one will be floodplain's a replacement, and the third one is an amendment.
Okay,
Or a correction.
so that will bring us down to what, Article 24?
EP, well, 23, there's no funding, is there? Oh,
That's
there's
the-
various projects, I take that back. So Article 23, do I have a motion for the CPC annual fund article?
I'll make a motion that we recommend the CPC annual fund article, which stipulates into what areas the amounts will be going. I think it's later on, it's even mentioned later on too.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second that motion of Article 23.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Article, okay, yeah. Article 24 is another CPC funding of article.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the funding of a CPC article in the amount of $2,825 for a senior center storage shed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Article, we have no Article 25?
It should be in there. I mean, that
Is-
was the one about,
Article 25 is
To, Northfield Farms Field Library Building sign.
in the amount of $2,000, I believe.
Yes.
Do you want to wait, since we don't have it here in front of us, wait for that, or do you feel comfortable in recommending Article 25?
I feel comfortable making
Okay,
that
so-
article.
on the back,
If you
yes.
can add some language to that for Article 25, which doesn't seem to be right here in front of us, be my guest.
I make a motion that we fund from CPC funding.
What's that? There's
Would you
no
like me
article.
to?
Oh, you've
Would you like me to? I do have an article. I don't know why it's omitted
You
from
have
there, but I
Article
can just,
25?
It's on the very back of the
If you
sheet
could read
that
that,
she
that would
gave
be
us.
fine.
Okay,
If you go to the back of the sheet that she,
25 would be to see if the town will vote
Oh.
to appropriate for historical preservation.
preservation purposes, the sum of $2,000 from the Community Preservation Fund balance for historical preservation and or the undesignated fund balance to replace the signage on the Northfield Farms Field Library Building or take any action thereon.
so we're going to
I
compromise
will
there.
make that motion.
Do I have a
Do I have
second?
second.
Any discussion on Article 25?
I'd like to go back to, could I have that again here? I'd like to go back to Article 24, because we wanted to put into that article the source of the funding, what things it came from in the CPC accounts.
So you want to add an amendment to our vote for Article 24, which would read,
Which,
Maybe you want to finish the vote for 25 and then
True.
go back.
And amend
oh,
24.
okay.
good, thank you. If there's no discussion on Article 25, I see none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Now, do you want to the funding of those articles coming
The
out
fund-
of specific funds?
The funding of Article 24 should read, for a total of $2,825, should read with the sum of $2,000 from the Community Preservation Fund balance for open space and recreation, and $825 from the Community Preservation Fund for undesignated funds. The total being $2,825.
Do you have that written down, or do you
It's
understand
here,
what's
she
going
can
on?
take this paper with you.
Oh, okay, so it's in, oh, it's right there. It's
Yeah.
mentioned in Article 24.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, yeah, if I can take this one. Yeah, really.
So that's gonna be an
You can give it back
amendment,
to me.
so do I hear a, it wouldn't be a second, it would be,
Amendment.
amendment to the, okay, but I need to
We need a
have,
second on,
why did I have first? I didn't have first yet.
I would make
You
that.
made-
I
you
thought
made
I
We
was
have to make a
making that
motion to amend
okay.
our previous vote, don't we?
Yes, we have to make a motion to amend our previous vote, which was on Article 24.
I second that motion to amend our prior vote on Article 24.
Do I have a second?
I would second that, or first it, or whatever.
Okay,
Wait,
all
I
the,
thought Tony made that amendment.
I made the amendment, but he seconded it.
you seconded as far as, yeah.
And so the amendment is as
The-
Tony read
Yeah,
it about the amendment.
yeah, that was the
Yeah.
amendment. It was seconded by Bernie. And now we're gonna have a discussion if need be. Otherwise, all those, is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye,
On the, yeah,
amendment,
amendment to the motion.
aye.
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 So let me ask you that. The amendment basically put in there will answer the question of where the funding is coming from. Okay. Moving on, I believe we're at Article 26. Again, and another community preservation. So
I will
here,
make-
here. Do you have this or do you have?
I got it here. Well, actually,
Yeah,
I
use
probably,
that.
the way it, I think we have it written here. 26, I will make a motion that we recommend the amount of $3,000 from the historical historical preservation part of the CPC funding for the repair of the historical outside fireplace located at 88 Main Street.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion for Article 26.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Wendy, if it's easier, we'll make sure you have a copy of
She
this.
can take this, and
Okay.
she'll give it back to me.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna copy it before I leave, 'cause I'm not gonna be here next Monday.
Okay.
Fine.
Article 26,
No.
27.
Wendy, I think you received an email.
Email with it, probably at about 5:30. So you'll have it
okay.
electronically.
All right, then in that case, yeah, thank you. I don't.
So Article 27, I don't think we need to discuss. We're at
No, that cleans
All
out
the resolution, I think that's pretty much closes out that. So, let's see where we are on our agenda here. Deliberations, working on that. We worked on the administrative review memo, correct? It looks like we're on the special town meeting draft, is that correct?
Actually, I want to make one more comment on my memo.
Sure.
Just before you switch, the last thing on the memo. I just wanted to point out, that normally you put money into general stabilization. You'll notice that you don't have an article doing that this year. When you get to the special town meeting warrant, you'll see some requests from the capital, but, basically, general stabilization account, as we decided to divide the capital in general, your general stabilization account is kind of like your backup savings in case something were to happen, if the bottom were to have a hole fall into your budget. And so you always want to save some money to be able to appropriate that in an emergency. Sometimes this economy doesn't go so well and the governor decides to do 9C cuts or something, and there goes part of the money you were relying on. Basically, the general rule of thumb, and also according to our town financial policies, you want to save about 5% is considered the rule of thumb in your general stabilization account. That's a good, healthy savings based on your operating budget. Well, your operating budget, even at this, if it were to pass, is about 9.4 million this coming year. If that passes, 5% would be about 470,000. So that's really where you should always be aiming as a minimum. Currently, if we don't touch it, add to it, use it, there's about $538,835 in your general stabilization. So that's a good, healthy general stabilization amount. So therefore, I was not recommending that you put anything in, nor take anything out at this time, and let that carry on as your general stabilization, since it's above the 5% you needed. So I just wanted you to understand why this year you don't see a general stabilization article. And since we're not saving any longer for the big project, we're actually trying to fund it, we obviously don't have anything in there for a capital stabilization article as well. But I didn't want anybody to think that we were going to drain the general stabilization account. I would not by any means recommend that, and that money should stay put where it is for any other emergency the town might experience and need funding for. So.
Any questions? Moving on, special town meeting draft. I don't have one here. Did you send them out?
Well, I sent it to you and then somehow it didn't get forwarded out.
Yeah, I sent it last week when I sent all, but basically, it's only 2
Articles. So it's pretty quick to go through. I think I actually sent you the version that had Article 2 on top of Article 1, but I've corrected that. The first article is going to ask you to transfer from available funds or provide some money for engineering, design, architectural services, project management, borrowing costs, or construction, and all other incidental costs. This is going to be to continue to take some funding from your move the cell tower easement money, finally, that $312,000, and also put some more of your capital stabilization towards the project, because you're still paying design, engineer, and those costs, and we have to fund those under the contracts. Whether or not the project moves forward, we have to finish paying for those services that have already been contracted for. So that's literally going to be taking some existing funding and moving it into those accounts to cover that. I may add to that the additional 84,000 in free cash, because I added borrowing costs to that Article 1. By putting all of that together, I think that would allow you to keep that general pool of money to cover all of those services, including the temporary borrowings that you might need next year before you go into the final borrowing, the final bond, which Article 2 is the one written by bond counsel, which really allows you to raise and appropriate a sum of money to pay the new costs for the emergency building, including, and then he has his language, demolition, design, engineering, all the pieces that might go into that. And to authorize the treasurer with the approval of the select board to fund it by borrowing. So that second article will be your approval to borrow to fund the construction of the building. So those are the two articles that would be on special. One, to shift some funding that's already in existence into the article, into the accounts that you're already using to continue to pay your engineers and your architects. And the second one is to basically allow the project to go forward with a borrowing. So that's the special town meeting article. So here's the
Andrea,
newest. Yep.
Question, I think at one time we there was about $84,000 in free cash.
Still
Yes.
left over.
But then we passed an article spending for the OPEB for
That's in there, that's included.
$75,000.
Already included.
That's already included. Okay, all right. Okay,
All
I was.
articles you voted on today.
This evening were already estimated to come out of the free cash.
Okay.
So the bottom number of 84,000 is you have not obligated yet. So I may recommend that you do so there. So trying to expend those funds without putting anything on top of the tax rate, using funds that you already currently have available to get all of those services and those pieces done and really save the borrowing for the physical construction of the building. Keeping less, putting less on the tax rate if we can help it with all the, with current town fund.
I just misunderstood.
So, okay, so are you looking for a recommendation?
For those two articles now, tonight? Or can we look it over a little bit more? I mean,
I will, you're gonna probably meet again,
Yep.
the article, I'm gonna ask the select board to sign it on April 4th. So if we look at it, we look to see what your next meeting is.
Next week, which would be,
Yeah,
27th.
yes.
Right, so if you're gonna meet, I need that, thank you. If you're gonna meet
the 27th, then, I think we should have a further discussion specifically on the, I think we should have a meeting on the project, more specifically. I wanted to give you this special town meeting warrant. I'm just now starting to get, documents from because we've just now sort of got financing numbers, which was presented to you at your last meeting and to the emergency services building at their last meeting. And so I sent all those off to our financial advisor, and he's just now starting to send me information on what funding might look like going forward. And you and the select board need to have some consideration and make some recommendations on how you want to be funding this project in terms of debt exclusions, levy limits, and all of that starting to come in now. And again, these are all still based on estimates. You have to understand, we don't get the final number until the bids come in, but we're working with the best estimate we can. The bids don't come in until April 12th, which is the week before town meeting. So before the special, but we have to work with the best numbers that we have, which is, usually are pretty good ballpark. I mean, they're not necessarily completely off. So I wanted to give you a sense of this warrant. It's up to you whether you want to vote on it tonight or wait till your next meeting next Monday, where I will have some more specific information as recommended by a financial advisor in terms of funding over the next, I don't know how 30 years that we're going to be borrowing this for, how much those amounts might look like. We're just starting to put that together now. And you and the select board are both going to need to make some decisions. In fact, I might even recommend at some point you guys have a joint meeting to come to some kind of joint resolution on what your recommendation is for going forward.
what's your feeling on it? Do you guys want another week to?
I prefer another week because as important details will be upcoming, and I think those are, to make an educated and proper decision.
I agree with Bernie.
David?
I agree.
Okay, so it looks like it's unanimous. We want to look it over a little bit next week. Now, when we did the school many years ago, as far as doing that, the debt for the school did not affect our levy limit. This would be done similar to that, or would it affect our levy limit?
Well, yes, I mean, the payment will
Affect your levy limit, but the question becomes whether or not you're going to be able to afford it completely under your levy limit. And that's the numbers that are starting to come in now. So we can take a look at what it looks like the schedule would be for payments, what your levy limit is now, and how close are you going to be, and whether you recommend moving forward without asking for any debt exclusion. You don't have to debt exclude the whole project. So that's what I'm kind of working on now. You might choose to just debt exclude part of the project, which means that you use up some of your levy limit, but you leave some on the table as a safe measure for future expenditures. So rather than go right up to your levy limit with this debt borrowing, it's possible that you go up some under the levy and keep a piece. So that's what I'm working out with him so that I can make you guys and the select board a presentation, and you can weigh those different options.
So will you
Hopefully have that by next Monday, or a good, okay, that's much, all right, so that's a good reason to wait until next week, people, so. Anything else that we need to discuss on the budget at this time?
Unless anyone has any questions, I did send you the updated sheets. I think I will play with them again to make sure everything is in there correctly. And I will make sure that I send out the updated sheets and the latest warrant, because I did get some changed language from the lawyer. And I'll make sure you get the special town meeting warrant, so that you have all that in case you also have some questions on the budget next week, because something could come up and you realize you have a question and there's no reason you can't still discuss it. It hasn't been signed yet. But the
Since
select
we're
board is
still-
going to look at it tomorrow night.
Okay, since we're still discussing the budget, I had a phone call today that from a citizen.
Years ago, or a few years ago, we used to have, they used to put on a spaghetti dinner and they'd invite the finance committee over there to, it was kind of before the annual town meeting, and just to go over the budget, explain it, and maybe have some questions asked of us as far as doing that. So I told this individual that we would maybe have a little discussion tonight on it. I know that he's going to take it up under the 48-hour rule, but since we're discussing the budget, I would be more than willing to do that. It's, just expressing how we came about doing our budget. If we get if we get 3 or more people, then I have to put it as a meeting as far as that. So I don't know, what are your feelings on that kind of thing? They would, and I will be talking to this person again after, I told them I'd call them after we talked, probably tomorrow. They would take care of everything, the dinner and everything as far as doing that. They'd have to come up with a place for us to do it. And then what we would do is go over how we determine the budget, which is pretty easy, set and dry. One of the questions was on the school, which we don't have a lot of say on, but it would help out so that when town meeting night came, they would have a better understanding of how we arrived at or not how we arrived at the budget, but how the budget was brought to us. Because we just recommend, we do not make decisions on the budget, which is what I told them. And maybe even the select board if they'd like to show up. But I would definitely have myself go and take care of that. If other people wanted to come and be there to answer any questions that I may not be able to answer, that would be something. So think about it for next week, and we will discuss it. I'll put it on the agenda for next week.
Do they have a proposed date?
They were thinking about
Thursday, April 13th, but it's going to be either a little bit after that or what, because we've got a lot on our plate at the moment. And I'll explain that to the person. He just threw out a date to me as far as doing that. And I want to make sure he wasn't confusing when we had all the departments go and speak to him. But I think when COVID hit, we kind of backed off on a lot of that stuff. So this would be a way to explain to the voting population, the registered voters in the town, how we arrive at our budget, and try to answer questions that we have been working on for 6 months as far as doing that. So
I just wanted to let you know that if Bernie's considering.
That is a meeting for the Emergency Services Facility Committee that day, but they start at 4. So, as long as that dinner is after 6 o'clock.
When I talk to him, it could be, if it's supper time kind of thing, so it's 6 o'clock.
After 6 o'clock, Bernie could probably make it, or and you could ask them if they want me to come or not come.
I'd be happy.
Because you could fill in some of the holes that I don't know.
And we can discuss it, but I think it's an opportunity, to basically.
If they do that date just at 6 o'clock or later, just.
One of the things that is really awesome that a lot of these articles that we just are funding are coming out of free cash, which maybe what I'll do that night is explain what free cash is. There's no such thing as free cash, but where the money comes from, people might have a better understanding when we explain it. So that's one of the things that
We will have opened the bids for the emergency
Services building the day before.
would really help out with two different things. So just keep that in mind, and we'll table it till next week, and then we'll see how people feel about it a little bit more.
What's the senior coffee hour? Do you remember which day that was?
April 4th was the mentioning date for the senior center. They were looking still to determine the time for that, but it's Tuesday, April 4th, sometime in the morning.
10:30 is.
10:30 is what at the time was.
I
Meeting
think,
wasn't determined yet.
That's for the building?
Yes, that's for the
Okay.
building. It's for to,
Right, they're gonna have a coffee hour at the senior center to talk about the emergency services building, for any seniors or public that, want to attend. We don't have the numbers at that meeting, but just I think to give an update as to the process and where everything sits with the building.
Okay, moving on, we do
Have some
have,
minutes, the minutes of March 13th, 2023. I have the draft. I think I sent the draft out to you. I'm sorry I sent it out today. I didn't get a chance to do it the other day. I think I just got it today, as a matter of fact. So, has everybody had a chance to look it over?
Yep.
Do I have a motion then?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the Finance Committee that took place on Monday, March 13th, 2023.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I want
ma'am.
to mention something. The minutes that I'm taking today are more involved and a little more complicated than in previous ones. So I ask all Finance Committee members to use your opportunity to amend them next week if I got anything wrong. I don't take it personally. These are your
Okay.
minutes. I won't be here next week, but I can review it on the tape. So
Okay.
like, please go over them carefully because I know how important they are, and I may have missed something because this is a little.
There is a lot more, yes.
Yeah.
We kind of got off track a couple times.
Yeah,
so.
it's okay. I tried to work with you, but you know, again, like, please amend as necessary.
Good suggestion, and we'll definitely do that.
Thank you.
Report on meetings attended. Any meetings attended?
I've had 2 meetings this past week on Wednesday. First one was the Emergency Services Building Committee. We took care of a lot of routine business, paying bills, and the other aspect was that the project has been put out to bid for the general and subcontractors for the project. The other meeting that I attended later that evening was a meeting of the Conservation Commission, in which myself and a couple of members of our committee were present, along with our representative from our project manager. The Conservation Commission approved the delineation of the flagging of the property in agreement with the OPM's hired special expert, who also, and it was a complete agreement with the Conservation Commission's expert, and there was no problems or issues arose. It was, like I said, completely acceptable, and we're moving on to the next step with them. That was it. Oh, we have a meeting. I'm trying to think, sorry, I'm just saying, I don't believe we have. And I'm going to be meeting with the planning board with some other members on Town Hall on Wednesday, March 22nd at 4 p.m. That's it.
Any other meetings attended? Anything else you'd like to discuss before we leave that we haven't gotten in the last 48 hours?
Just wondering if we have any movement on filling our vacancy on the committee.
The moderator has not gotten back to me. I've called him a couple times, left messages. At this point in time, it becomes a little academic because we're almost done with deliberations as far as doing that. But I will still continue to do that. I do know, or I have heard, I haven't actually physically talked to him, but there have been 3 candidates or 3 people that have been mentioned, but none have been appointed as of today. And I'm hoping that that happens. There's a couple other issues I need to speak to the moderator about, having to do with other appointees that needs to be done, and he has to fill those vacancies. So I haven't been trying to get in touch with him, but I do know that he's been on vacation, but I did not know when he's coming back. So he may still be on vacation. I know that his wife, when I talked to her, she was heading out the door to vacation. So, and they were planning on an extended vacation, so that may have interfered a little bit. So, that being said, no other businesses seems to be on the table. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next week is the next meeting, just to make sure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
could you announce what?